Peace and blessings, family. This is your boy Gerald. It is Tuesday, May 17th, 2017. How is everybody doing? I hope that your weekend was well. For those who celebrated Mother's Day, my shouts out goes to you for all that you do. The love, the compassion, the caring, the nurturement that is given for our young, for those who are going to travel, the roads less traveled that were blazed by your existence. But today, y'all, I'm putting this video out because I want to reassure somebody, because I feel it in my spirit that there needs to be some clarity and some validation for the intended heart, intended mind, because see, no one can love you more than you love yourself. But before you can truly understand what it is or what's required to love yourself, you must first be vulnerable. That's right. And to be vulnerable, that means to allow that voice that comes from within yourself. We're talking about that little boy. We're talking about that little girl that continues to exist, because you do understand the flesh is only temporary, because we are spiritual beings first, family. So it's very important that you see, or shall I say, go ahead and stop playing. Do you realize now, in 2017, we have set a foundation for condoning passive aggressive mentality? How about the victim card? How about what's the point? How about, well, it ain't gonna work anyway, so what's the use? And that is nothing but a social conditioning of time and effort squandered. So, well, how can you say that, Gerald? Because, see, what you don't understand is every day I get up in a certain, and inside that condition, there's a mindset that I have to survive. If I could have it in which I could envision it, I would not be here. I would be a million miles away. But that is not my truth. That is not my reality, because my reality seems dim. Let me tell you something. Because there's a lot of people being made believers now. A lot of people are starting to not question divine intervention. A lot of people are starting to break off the rough edges in their lives, because they know that that was, because you know God has a plan. The moment that you took your first breath, who am I talking to? Because see, I know right now the illustration of what feeling emotionally safe is about, the example of what family is about, what relationships are about, are under siege. Let's not turn a blind eye, because that's all we've been doing for quite some time. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are walking around that can't put words behind their emotions, but they feel punch drunk. They feel like the battered spouse syndrome, which we know when we condone it is nothing but Stockholm syndrome, because you are actually giving an environment for the abuser to thrive. How about that opportunist? How about that coworker that comes to work and has nothing to contribute? Who am I talking? We could easily turn around and say, well, you know, Gerald, that's just the way it is. Bruce Hornsby and the Range put that song out back in the 80s. And one of the main lines was, that's just the way it is. Things will never change. But things always change when you decide to change your viewpoint. Things change when you decide to see the value and the importance of your time. Things change when you decide to make a commitment to love you. So once again, I go back, as I've always stated, do you know who you are? Because see, some people can't even answer that because they're too afraid, because they know that when you look at that question, there are a lot of blanks, there are a lot of incompletes, there are a lot of deflections, and unfortunately, there's a lot of denial. But see, let me tell you, and I don't know if I should have thrown the disclaimer out there in the beginning, but family, you know Gerald got love for you. And I'm going to try to pick my words very cautiously. But see, I know that I've got to reach somebody at their lowest level. This ain't shade, this is love. See, when you are able to see your challenges, you'll also come to understand your opportunities. Because guess what? You ain't got to be there. Did you hear what I said? You don't have to sustain in that decision on which way to go. Should I go left? Should I go right? Should I ground my feet? Or should I submit? And unfortunately, we live in a world today where there's a lot of submission going on, family. You know what else is going on right now, right in front of you? There's a lot of history being rewritten. I'm not even talking about on the level of what's going on in your family tree. I'm talking about collectively. You know why? Because the devil's work. The devil's work is never done. He is that line in the brush. He does not want you to be happy. Let's get that. I want you to hear me. The moment that spiritual seal was placed over your life, you inherited your first breath. Now let's look at the magnificence of that in itself. You weren't guaranteed to go through the gestation of 9 months. That was solely dependent on your mother to sustain the environment that was required for your development. But it was by way of the creation and timing through your father. That is why it takes two to make you. Somebody's going to get that. And that you made a blessing. But I understand, because you may have been reared in an environment where there's been many rainy days. You may have actually had to walk through the valley of the shadow of death in your own environment, because you don't know what love is. And you had to scratch and scrape just to survive. You may have been reared in an environment where, unfortunately, there may have been someone that was placed in your life to nurture and guide your development, and they stepped over the bounds and did things that bring underlining pain. Now, I could end this right here with this statement, but I know that there are those that are listening, just know Gerald prays for you. And just know God's got something better for you. And that first statement is this. You know why you went through all that? What, you know why you saw the tribulation at a young age? You know why you are in the environment that you are in right at this moment? Because you got to understand, every decision is a set up or a setback, depending on your mentality or what you were exposed to. Because your exposure is what? That makes up your ideology, and your ideologies make up your perceptions, and your perceptions are the fabric that make your wisdom. I say all this for a reason, because I got this feeling that there's somebody have had this underlining lull in their emotions, and you are actually entertaining the fact of your existence. You are actually saying, well, you know what if I just, because I'm so tired of being tired, why don't I just go ahead and get my favorite drink really good, and I go wrap this car around that telephone pole. Won't matter, I'll be out of the way, and I'll be at peace. Don't. There might be somebody right now, you may be dealing with temptation because your life is doing pretty good, and all of a sudden now you're having that moment of serenade from, as Minnie Riperton said, back down memory lane. And you're kind of confused because you're saying, well, where were you when I needed you? Now I'm placed where I am, and now you want to come. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because you will understand what the word bittersweet is, and it'll be more bitter than sweet, because all illusions are temporary. What the devil does, and that goes back to my first statement. The reason why you're seeing what you're seeing, the reason you went through all that pain, the reason why you actually know what hell on earth is about, is because God has something specific that you must fulfill. You may be that person that may change the world or change the mindset of one individual, and that one individual in turn light a spark. Or, because you do understand we're spiritual beings first. Don't get it twisted. That's why the flesh is temporary. That's why we age. Don't be afraid of that process. That means you're healthy. But I know there might be some people that have been convinced because secretly, silently, you've been dealing with it is like that familiar friend you know is pain. And that pain has a cousin named denial. And denial has a couple of associations or associates out there known as setback and non-accountability. Who am I talking to? And you think that because of what's been going on, or you may actually think because all these things have taken place, you are cursed. Who am I talking to? You think you're cursed because, for those who may remember the movie that comedian Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy did called Life, there was a player on there called Can't Get Right. But Can't Get Right had a natural talent, and that was to hit that ball. But because of the fact that Can't Get Right couldn't express his thoughts and probably didn't have the right tools or nurturement, he got in trouble. And that put him in an environment where he was being controlled. But it was divinely meant that Eddie Murphy's character, Martin Lawrence's character, showed compassion. They still saw the little boy in the man. They could have easily said, you know what I'm doing this time, I'm miserable. And life as I know it ends. And do like so many people, just look out the window and let the days pass them by. But they didn't. And God moved, can't get right, onward. But there was a lesson in that experience. Surely that Eddie Murphy's character felt a little certain kind of way because he felt that, well, I'm going to help him because there was some agenda there. And some of y'all may be dealing with people that have ulterior motives. Some of y'all may be realizing or reeling with the fact that there was someone that you gave what you thought was vulnerability to be taken advantage. Let me explain something to you, first of all. We attract what we are within. So if you don't understand who you are to begin with, how can you protect what's sacred? Who am I talking to? So let's go back to what I said initially. See, right now, right before you, family, there's a lot of effort to get you to change your perception, to get you to accept the things that you know is not in your best interest, to get you to play ball. Question I want to ask you is this. How does it make you feel? This conversation between me and you. You ain't got to tell nobody. How does that make you feel? Does it match the person on the outside with the beautiful person in the inside? Or are you having conflicts? Because let me tell you something. The person in the inside matters most. That's why you see it illustrated all over of people that may have things going on. Let me explain something to you, family. Some of y'all may have heard this term, the Joneses. And the Joneses is nothing but a symbolic illustration of people being worldly successful. But why is it these Joneses have more problems than those that don't have nothing? It's because these people don't love themselves. It's because these people don't see their value. It's because of the environment that you allow yourself to cohabitate in. Haven't you noticed as the people come and go in your life, and some of you may be at a point where you say, I don't want to have nothing to do with nobody. I just want to be left alone because I got these voices in my head and I think I'm going crazy. No, you're not going crazy. Let me explain that to you. 9 times out of 10, that is spiritual attack, especially when that conversation or thought is not in your best interest. Let me explain something to you. Because we're talking about manifestation. And what is manifestation? It's projection of actions to come. So let's think of it this way. The manifestation is the validation of what you manifested from within, your spirit. So it's very important that you cultivate whatever your choices may be. Now, here's the thing, though. You do know that God don't operate in time. Not to our understanding. That's why you've always heard people say, he's always there. He's always on time, but never when you want him to be. But he's always on time. The reason for that is to give you a lot of time to understand fully what has transpired. So let's look at value. Why would I turn around and give you your abundance when you don't even see the value of your time? You're going to squander it. You might be somebody right now and saying, well, Gerald, I hear what you're saying, but all I ever wanted was someone that will love me for me. But do you love you? Do you love you? Do you know the more that you focus on yourself, you glow? And as you glow, you grow. That's why you see these women out here growing their hair. They're getting back in the gym. They're eating correctly. They're getting a good night's sleep. They're taking their vitamins. They're drinking water. They're investing in their temple. This is for both male and female. Because the more you invest, it's about the harvest, family. Do you actually think the man of your dreams is going to come into your life if you're not ready? But that devil will definitely give you a watered down example of Mr. Wrong. Who am I talking to? See, right now, because we live in a very prideful society. And the same people that are prideful never take accountability of their choices. That's why narcissists exist. And what are narcissists? Narcissists are nothing but the physical incarnate of demonic influence. Listen here, family. There's a lot of demons walking around on this planet. There's a lot of Jezebel spirits. Jezebel's doing her best work right now. And you can tell because you see our women out here, our wildflowers, our queens. The more and more they grow, the more plastic they become. But let me tell you, what's the side effect on that? Everything that makes you unique dies. Because once the spirit dies, so does the flesh. And you see it. You see it. This is not shade. I'm trying to tell you, you look better without it. So with that being said, just know this. You've got part of your life you have yet to step into. You have requirements of your life that must be fulfilled. And until you're able to finally take that responsibility to claim you back, it is going to be in a holding pattern in your life. You may know, you know it in your spirit because you said, well, you know, why is it that these thoughts I'm seeing, they're becoming realities for other people, but I'd already seen this for myself, because that's God showing you love, that all things are possible when you place him first. All things. But we have a lot of people that call themselves realists. And the realists have a mindset of, if it's not in my hand, it don't exist. But why are you suffering? Why are you hurting? That's your emotions, right? You can't see your emotions, but you can see the effects of the action. Now, can't you? And what is your emotions? It's a representation of your spirit. So that's why I go back to say, do you know who you are? There might be somebody right now saying, Gerald, my best days have come and gone. I didn't know what I had. And because of my arrogance or my selfishness, I have placed myself in a place of darkness. Let me tell you something. If God wants you to have it, he'll make a way when there is no way. That's for somebody. You're not supposed to be sitting over here like a wounded bird, knowing that you should be flying. Tyson, sit down. Y'all can't see. Yeah, you see him right there. He always do. No. You about to go in your kennel. I guess he wanted to tell that to somebody. Like, see, there's your validation. Somebody been thinking, where's that dog at? Where he was. There's your validation. Now, I'm gonna shift gears real quick because here's something that I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned with, because there is a deliberate agenda to undermine the the fiber of what it is to be a woman and a man. And it's playing out before you. And I know there might be somebody maybe feeling a little awkward because she's saying, well, Gerald, I don't want to rock the boat. I just want to live. Let me tell you something. Number one, take the judgment out of your heart. Number two, it's time for you to start healing. You realize it takes a lifetime for you to even evolve into who you're destined to be. And unfortunately, we have a daily reminder called cemeteries of those who have been taken away and life cut short. And sometimes people get it misconstrued like, well, this person, what about that little girl or that little boy? Their life hadn't even began. God didn't ask you to analyze his choices. Maybe God felt that it would be better suited for that child's life to be removed than for pain, abuse, exploitation. Because let's not get this twisted, family. You go to your local Wally World. That's Walmart. A little department store. Your little drug store. Go over there either by the restrooms. That wall does not get small. That's somebody's baby, somebody's mother, somebody's son, somebody's legacy that has been delayed, off track. And a lot of times, these children are not found. Now, though it doesn't have any merit right now, but it does make me think about something. I remembered while I served in the United States, I served in the Air Force, and I spent a great deal of time overseas. And the one thing that I noticed through my travel, there was a lot of brothels. For those who may know it as red light districts. And yes, even in Nevada, there are areas that support prostitution. Yes, it does. They don't call it the Sin City for nothing. And one thing I always wondered was, where do they get these women from? Sit down. Where do these women come from? Tyson, will you stop? See? Stop. Hold on, y'all. What I say? What I say? What I say? Yeah, you know what's up. In the kingdom you go. I always wondered, where do these women come from? And they always young. They're always young. They're in the prime of their lives. but they're in these locations. And I remember seeing, I think it was the movie Taken, and how this network of trafficking was going on. Because yes, family, trafficking exists. And one of the number one tools of trafficking is done is right here. So with that being said, this, I feel this for somebody. Because you may have an adolescent little boy, little girl. They're in their puberty stage, and you know they're very astute when it comes to this right here, this device right here, this tool right here. Highly recommend that you take a look at where they choose to view, and if they got a cell phone, you need to make it your business to see who. I know it may feel uncomfortable because you may feel that, well, I want to be the friend. No, you be the parent. Be the parent. Because I'm going to tell you what, the things that you don't do, the streets are going to try to do. Because guess what, family? I ain't got to remind you. That 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock news is getting worse. That yellow tape is not running out. Tags are still being generated. You got to protect your babies. That's for somebody. And I understand, because some of y'all may be frustrated because they smelling themselves, they rebelling, and you ain't got time for the drama. But what's more frustrating is the fact that really they're nothing but a chip off the old block, because you see a lot of your traits in them, and you don't want to be the hypocrite saying don't do this and don't do that, because you were the poster child of doing the same thing. Get out of your emotions. Protect your family. Protect your family. I cannot stress that. Now, message to my kings. You might not realize this right now, but you'll come to understand this. There is a systematic agenda, and it isn't hidden, that if you do not govern your life, you are going to be the livestock in a penal system. Because it is no secret, the correctional facility is big business. And guess what? That's free labor. And what's free labor? That means you're a slave. That means you being robbed of your life. And guess what? I mentioned it last week. Our Attorney General just announced that they're not playing with you. They're not playing. The days of, you get locked up and you get sentenced 5 years and you do 2.5. Nah. You're going to do every bit of it. Probations and paroles, forget about it. They're more or less taking on a mindset of how it is done on the federal side. If you get a federal sentence, you're going to do every day. And they're not going to make it convenient for you, too. They're going to ship you way out. So guess what? Your family and friends are eventually going to forget about you because they can't get to you. Why put that burden on someone? Oh, forget about your girlfriend. Forget about her, because she's going to be living her life. And you ain't in it. That's for somebody. Because I know right now, millennials, listen, I got love for y'all. I do. And I wish I had somebody, I was afforded the opportunities that you have today. But it's humbling because the same sentiment that was being expressed in my life when I was in my 20s. I heard this. Some of y'all that are in your 40s, you're realizing you're seeing the same thing play out again. So imagine what your elders say about you. Imagine why generational curses still exist. Because as each generation is birthed out, shouldn't there be a solution? We didn't have the blatant attack on our boys to emasculate them, to feminize them, to blatantly attack our little girls. There's nothing wrong with empowerment. But this is on a spiritual note, family. This is nothing but straight up demonic in your face. And if you ain't with it, we are going to conquer. They're going to make your life hard. But see, that was written in the Bible now, wasn't it? Didn't God say, those of the true faith will be tested? That's what's going on, family. So there's a lot of biting the side of your mouth, a lot of bridling your tongues, and a whole lot of validation going on right now. Now, let me turn the curve. Because some of y'all are in your feelings right now because you're dealing with betrayal. You're at that point, you're in your awakening, and you're like, what did I do that was so bad that I would inherit this reality? Goes back to what I said before. But see, when you took your first breath, your legacy was written. Your life path was written. The people that would be on that journey was in place. But you know what else was there? Your two spiritual gifts. The number one gift was the gift to love yourself unconditionally. And the second gift was free will. How many of y'all seen the movie Assassin's Creed? Great movie. A lot of spiritual metaphors in there. If you knew what was being said and what was being visualized. But the prowess was the same as it's always been. Good versus evil. And I'm not going to go into it because some of y'all might not have seen the movie. But I will say this, though. Same example is played out within you. Symbolic yin-yang sign exists. But the commonality is the circle. This is what defines who you are, what you stand for, and what you give. So what about that heart? What about that heart? You know, without that heart, you would not exist. And do you realize, unfortunately, that is why some people through life to not define that little hashtag, that little hash mark between their birth and their death date. So that's why I say to each and every one of you, do you know who you are? Maybe the first thing to even be considered is to be honest with yourself. Maybe you don't know who you are. Maybe you're not in that stage of understanding. That is why I convey to each and every one of you millennials, stop rushing your life. Take the stopwatch out of your life and enjoy. How about ground your feet and take stock on what is being revealed to you right now, right before you? Because fools rush in. That's why there's always destruction. There's always calamity. There's always pain. But you know what's not there? Love, loyalty, upliftment. But you'll find plenty of validation. That's why I'm a firm proponent for this. Be careful what you say. Yes, some of y'all know is be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. But that is nothing but a roundabout way of talking about manifestation. Because all things come to pass that you've said, directly or indirectly. It depends on what your spiritual position is. How many times have you said something kind of sarcastically and then it revealed itself indirectly with someone else? Kind of made you feel a certain kind of way, huh? Well, 9 times out of 10, that was either God using his angels to show you, yes, all things are possible. That's why you always hear, all things are possible through Christ. You may be someone that, and I want to throw this out too, because I've always been a firm believer of this as a little boy. Stop getting hung up on labels. I remember when I was a little boy, I had this question touch me, and I was like, I was in Sunday school, I think I was. And I think I asked my parents this too. But I asked, well, what happens to the people that do not know that name, but they live a good life? What happens to them? And I would always get a deflected question, a deflected answer. They've got to find their way to go. But what if they don't know that is the name? For example, indigenous people, because we still have a populace of people that live in indigenous areas, that they're not connected to society as we know it, that do not have books, do not have technology. They live off the land. How about those people, those tribes that still exist in the rural areas of South America? What about them? Do they get cast? No. Because I'm a firm believer that I believe that man does not know God's true name. But he is the Alpha and the Omega. So that in itself requires you to be humble, to bend that knee, to give praise. You realize until you can give praise to the Most High, you can't give praise to yourself. That's what pride is. And that ain't nothing but what's fostered by, unfortunately, the devil. But Gerald, she is so beautiful, man. She got an hourglass body, beautiful face. She could stop traffic. She's smart as a whip. A living hell. She did not know God. And therefore, you cannot be yoked with someone you cannot build upon. That's a reality for everybody. Mr. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just saying. You say to yourself in a time of influx, instability, and emotions, usually when you're some of your greatest prayers, directly or indirectly, are during a periods of emotion, anguish, grief, pain. And you'll see the example, someone's with somebody and they mistreat them. And you say, if I was in your shoes, boy. And all of a sudden you see a representation. Hey, how you doing? Person just walks in your life. And they feel like a breath of fresh air, but really they are nothing but the quiet storm. And they are all that you want them to be, but not what you need them to be. And all that does is usher in more frustration, delay, and pain. This is not shade. We all go through it. The reason you go through that is to teach you to love yourself more, to see value of your existence, as well as to be able to see your strength. Who am I talking to? You still think God is out here punishing you. You do understand that the way generational curses work, because they jump generations. But guess what? You might be the one that's going to change the cycle and the trajectory of your family tree because you are the exception to the rule. You are going to be the one that they call the matriarch or the patriarch of your family lineage. You may be the sounding board, or you may be the voice of reason. And this all happens in the intended time and moment. And the illustrations are always there. But you can't see it or come to understand it until you decide to be still. You're not going to find peace at the bottom of that bottle, queen. You will not find clarity looking to get high. Because you know what happens when people get high? That escape, but that problem is still there when they come back down. And actually, usually is more compounded than ever. There might be somebody right now, you slowly but surely are coming to understand that things are better the more you pray. But the reality is, you're dealing with a demon right now. Those shackles are being manifested by your companion and the anguish that comes from it. And all you want to do is be at peace. All you want to do is finally be able to exhale. How about breathe? How about love yourself more? Some of y'all may be at a place inside your heart where you have seen where you've been, where you need to be, or where you are, and you finally made a commitment to do something new. Who am I talking to? You do understand misery loves company, right? You understand that, right? Because if it didn't work, you wouldn't have a multiple of people doing the same thing. You would have more individuals than those of the status quo. You understand that, right? And I'm going to bring this home. I saw this post online, and it was for Mother's Day. And this person said it's kind of hypocritical to acknowledge Mother's Day when you can just, why don't you marry them first? And I felt a certain kind of way about that because a lot of people are missing the mark. Because you can't rush your life and then claim it on the backside. Everything is progressive, as well as the importance of your decisions that you make and the effects from those choices. But we all have free will. And I know somebody right now, it's like, well, if you can't beat them, join them, Gerald. That's just the way of the world. But is the way of the world worth your happiness? Look at the track record. How far has that gotten you? Was it worth those tears? Was it worth that pride? How about that peace of mind? Maybe this is the moment that you finally have that conversation with God. Because if you want your life to be better, you got to let him be in front of it. Who am I talking to? Yes, we live on this earthly realm, but your actions come from a spiritual one. Who am I talking to? You actually think everything you went through was because of what was going on? No, 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 no. But that's what they want you to believe. There might be somebody say, well, you know what? My best years are behind me, Gerald. I'll never have the love of my life. Yes, you will. You'll have the love of your life when you start loving you. So living by agenda, tricks, and manipulation, all that does is set up for that to be played out and learned through your life. God forbid your children. If the track record is, well, grandma was never married and mama was never married and my sisters were never married either. You know why that's pointed out to you? Because you're going to be somebody's loving wife. But the key word is love. Because see, nobody completes you. They validate your state of mind. Who am I talking to? Just look at your circle. Your circle is the direct reflection of who you are within. Or words or actions not put through comprehension. That's why you hear birds of a feather flock together, because if she's nutting up, then there's a part of your traits, of your psyche, that agrees with that to be with her. So you got to take that victim card away. As long as you have the victim card, guess what happens? The devil gets to distract you out of your life. You're tired of being broke? Have the courage to fix it. But I understand, because there's a lot of y'all seeing the glass half empty or half full, because you're seeing a lot of people taking shortcuts. Well, she got with him and he made it better. But you don't know what she's doing behind closed doors to earn those pennies. And you know what she won't earn? Her self-respect. Nope. Because as long as she allows herself to be in that condition, more disrespect will come. More of the same, kind of like with a child. If you tell a child you can't do that and they test you, they are going to continue to test you until there is a repercussion. Why does the repercussion have to be your dreams? Why does the repercussions have to impact your character? Why does the repercussions have to go up against your self-worth? Your life is priceless, family. until you decide to see it for yourself. Anything that you wanted to become will not. That's why I always convey to people all the time. You can try to reinvent yourself all you want until you decide to do the work inside you, take accountability for who you are. How about love yourself? Why are you putting all your eggs on one basket? Well, you know what? If I play the good husband, and if I'm the good husband, the faithful spouse, the provider, you know, she's gonna be loyal. No, she's not. No, she's not. No, she's not. She's gonna have you as a physical and financial battery. And guess what? When you lose your charge, they lose their charm. And guess what? They go look for another plug. That's for somebody. That's okay. That's all right. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Sooner or later, you're going to get tired of being tired. You're going to hear your voice for the very first time with them, and you're going to listen. You might see those dreams you having be real prolific, huh? That's for somebody. And you're going to finally have the courage to have that conversation with him. He's been waiting on that. It's not his responsibility to rescue you. He created you. That's why it's your journey. But what's at stake is your spirit. How about your legacy? How about the footprint that you're going to leave for those to come behind you? I'll do one better. How about the representation of who you are for those who have already passed? I used to always say, if you had the ability to be reunited with an elder, say a grandparent or someone that showed compassionate love for you, would they embrace you with open arms and a kiss? Or would they beat you down with a switch? And that's the problem. You got grown people that need their ass beat, excuse my French, not to punish, but to snap them out of that illusion. Just know God loves you. And there are plenty of people that pray for you, speaking your name right now. But make sure that you speak yours first. Right now, your life may have a lot of clouds over it. But all it takes for you is to ground your feet. And when you're ready, take that first step back to you. That little boy and that little girl is depending that you will. And when you decide to, you will get familiar ground. Watch some spiritual doors open up. Because unfortunately, family, God said it. There will be many that will be deceived willfully. And unfortunately, when time comes to pass, there'll be those that will be, I know you not. Let's make sure it ain't you. God's praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth. And for that, it helps me discern mine. I hope you guys have a blessed week. It's nice and sunny here in Virginia Beach. Yeah. The sun's out. So that means there's gonna be some traffic. This is a resort area. But that's all right. Just make sure you leave and come back the same way you left. Safe and blessed. Peace.